Thank you very much for being my guest today.
It's a pleasure.
You've been to Ukraine so many times, as you told me. What is your mission today?
My mission today is supporting Ukrainian Air Force in general.
But you've started working with Ukrainian Air Forces a long time ago. What was the idea, the incentive that you had at that time?
Yes, my first official mission to Ukraine, which was my first visit to Ukraine, was to discuss air defense and how we do it in the United States and share like best practices. And this was in July of 2002. And I came here as part of the California Air National Guard.
How many things have changed over these 20 years in the cooperation in the air of our two countries and the level of Ukrainian pilots?
It's been a complete transformation, both in society and inside the military, that I've witnessed firsthand over these 23 years. I probably should preface that I was in charge of the California-Ukraine partnership from 2017 to 2019. But up to 2017, I probably visited Ukraine on more than 50 events from 2002 to 2017. And to see the change in society transforming as an independent nation, it's definitely a stark difference between 2002 and now. Inside the military, I have flown together with Ukrainian pilots on several occasions. My first time flying in Ukraine was in 2011 out of Mirgorod, supporting Operation Safe Skies, which was in support of Ukraine and Poland hosting Eurocup 2012. So a year prior, we brought our F-16s here and flew for the first time with Ukrainian pilots. It was an amazing education for an American pilot to come here and see their system and how they operate, and just recognize how different the operations were. But the level of talent inside the Air Force at the pilot level and the maintainer level was very similar to ours, but we operated in two completely different environments. How our air forces are structured and how we do our procedures. But the talent was recognizable immediately. Then in 2018, after the war had started, and we brought our unit converted from F-16 to F-15Cs, and we brought F-15Cs to Staro-Konstantinov for 3 weeks to operate in exercise Clear Sky, which was USAFE sponsored exercise here, but hosted by Ukraine. It was international, 9 nations participated. So we had F-16s from Poland and Romania participating with our F-15s in Staro-K, and then all of the Ukrainian airplanes were participating in this exercise. And just the transformation from 2011, which was a protect society level type of exercise, to a air sovereignty exercise, protect Ukraine skies, was the theme of our 2018 exercise. And the transformation from 2011 to 2018 was stark.
Could you imagine in 2018 that some 5 years later that will be not just exercise in the sky, but real fighting in the sky with F-16s?
Yes, and a lot of people, the experts out there, the quote-unquote experts, what gave the Ukrainians nation 2 weeks chances against Russia. But people who have worked with the armed forces of Ukraine, they knew that there was a special quality in Ukraine that would not be defeated in two weeks. So when the quote experts said that it would be a quick war, there were a lot of people, a lot of real experts out there that knew that the story was different.
Where were you on the day of the start of the full-scale invasion? How did you find out about this?
I was at Ramstein Air Base. I had been requested to travel there on the 20th of February of 2000.
Because of the anticipation of the full-scale invasion?
Yes. The commander of United States Air Forces Europe needed coordination with Ukraine Air Force, and the relationships we had through our participation in these exercises and with California's relationship led to me coming over and helping the commander of USAFE get to know Ukrainian Air Force.
What type of coordination did you have with the Ukrainians in the beginning of the full-scale invasion?
Very close communication. We were communicating before the war started through official channels and then through unofficial channels with the numerous colleagues that I had here in Ukraine that were flying out of Vasil, Kyiv, out of Mirgorod, out of Starokon, and all the other bases.
Did you see the footage of the first day of the invasion of the Russian helicopters? What was your take from this?
For me personally, it was an extremely emotional event, knowing that my friends and colleagues were here fighting and we were not part of this fight. We had trained in 2018 to fly alongside Ukrainian pilots, and it was very difficult for us who are close to stand by and watch this happen.
Did you anticipate that at some point Ukraine would request F-16 and you'll be helping Ukrainian pilots how to operate them?
You know, in the after action report of our 2018 exercise, one of the recommendations were for the Western countries to support Ukraine in its evolution of its Air Force. We saw that their equipment was getting old. We had no idea the war was coming. But this recommendation was to have modern multi-role Western fighters and to help Ukrainian Air Force specifically to evolve to a Western doctrine, which goes back to my very first point where I highlighted the differences between our two Air Forces and how we operated. The talent was the same, but the systems were not as effective as a Western doctrine Air Force.
When you're now thinking about your system, about your model, about American Air Force model, do you think now it's applicable to this war in Ukraine in 2025?
Absolutely. That is my professional opinion. Of course, I'm retired now, but my education in doctrine is cemented in my philosophy, and these are some of the few things that can, those are some areas where Ukraine could even get more advantage in this fight.
How many pilots have you trained to operate F-16, or have you any? Since there was made a decision that Ukraine would get those.
I have not officially trained any pilots, but I flew F-16s for a long time, for half of my career. F-15Cs for the other half, and but I share my F-16 experience with my friends and colleagues in Ukraine Air Force, but that's not officially training.
Were you among those who advocated for Ukraine to get F-16s?
Yes, I was. From the very start, we knew that Ukraine needed a modern weapon system, a multi-role fighter, because at that time, Ukraine Air Force was outnumbered, and they were what we out-equipped. Like the Russian airplanes were superior in radar detection range and superior in missile range. So we call that being outsticked. But Ukraine was not outclassed, and that is exactly where they drove the fight. Their tenacity and ingenuity and creativeness is what gives the Ukrainian Air Force the advantage. We who have trained with Ukraine before the war started knew that this characteristic was dominant here. And for them to get a modern weapon system would make a significant impact on this war. Not immediately, but over time, it will prove to be extremely effective and beneficial for Ukraine.
How do you now evaluate this impact that you expected?
Without getting into official numbers, it's extremely effective in air defense for the country, extremely effective against cruise missiles and drones in comparison to legacy aircraft in Ukraine, the Su-27 or MiG-29, which are still very professionally operated, and they are fantastic in their own capabilities. But the F-16s radar and weapons system greatly benefits Ukraine.
Your answer implies that F-16s are now being mainly used to defend Ukraine, to defend the population from air missiles and not on the front line. Am I correct?
That was my answer. That does not reflect the complete capability of the F-16 nor the Ukrainian Air Force.
What is your feeling? Where do they operate more? During the Russian missile attacks, or they attack on the front line themselves?
I do not have any official numbers, and nor can
But
I
your
comment
overall
on,
understanding?
The Ukrainian pilots, the Ukrainian Air Force, and the F-16 are more than capable of operating in all theaters of the air here in Ukraine.
Have you known personally F-16 pilots in Ukraine?
Absolutely. I visited them when their first class went through in Tucson, Arizona, and I knew many of them when they were flying other airplanes in Ukraine before the F-16.
I read in some foreign media that the training of Ukrainian pilots took longer than it was expected because their English was not as good. Do you agree with this?
I think that the lack of English skills, which is the common language for aviation globally, slowed down the progress a little bit, yes. And I think that going forward, I think studying in advance in English will help speed up the process.
Have you known pilots who spoke fluent English?
Absolutely. Dzus, Moonfish, and many others, Nomad, were fantastic English speakers, and it was very easy to communicate with them. And these individuals also flew with us in California in 2019. So it wasn't just California's coming to Ukraine, but on several occasions we would host events in the United States where Ukrainian Air Force officers would attend and see our best practices at home.
What was it like for you to find out that Dzus died?
It was a day I still don't come to grips with. I was just in Kyiv on Sunday night, the 20th of August, and he was killed on Friday morning, the 25th. Or that's when I got the news. I got a phone call at 5 in the morning, and California had just got home the previous evening. And it was a very good friend of mine calling, and I was excited to see that he was calling me. And he broke the news, and I didn't tell anybody. I just could not repeat these words. I was trying to pretend it wasn't real. And
you're very good friends with his mom?
Yes, Lily is a super person. You could tell where Dzus got his fire from. The apple did not fall far from the tree, is a saying that we have. And they were very alike in their personalities and their determination for what they think is right and for what they seek to achieve.
Moonfish died. It's when Ukraine first lost its F-16 in fighting, but more importantly, lost one of its best pilots.
Yes.
What do you think of that situation?
It was very hard also, especially because the day prior we were celebrating the life of Dzus and acknowledging his loss. And then the very next day we get the news that one of his best friends and a close friend of ours was lost as well. It was like a double punch in the gut. And the impact that both of these officers had, not just inside the flying community, but just for Ukraine. The fact that they together sought out to get this new weapon system back in 2022, the first year of the war, and the impact they had on the future of the Air Force cannot be overstated.
You know, the Dzus died before Ukraine got F-16, and the promise was made that his mom would be in the cabin when Ukraine receives its first F-16.
Yeah, and
the promise was kept.
They upheld that promise. I spoke to her afterwards, and that had to be a very difficult moment for her. But also, it acknowledges Dzus' role in Ukraine receiving the F-16.
There were some speculations that Ukraine did get F-16, but not enough software and other services so it can operate at full capability. Do you agree with these accusations?
I think the F-16 has many versions. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing is that F-16s are flying in defense of Ukraine, and it's a life cycle. So the F-16s that I flew were very, I would say, basic when I first started flying them, and then our unit received upgrades over time. And I see this as a natural evolution in any Western fighter. So as upgrades become available, they get them. And I see this happening in Ukraine over in the future. And actually, I would not be surprised if they've received upgrades from the day that they arrived 9-10 months ago.
If you look at this war, which is happening now, and the role of drones, how do you think the role of drones affect, if in any way, the role of F-16?
I think this falls squarely in the Western air power doctrine. We do joint operations. It's normal for us. And I think that the Ukrainian Air Force and Ukrainian Army and other agencies inside Ukraine are beginning to discover the advantages of joint operations. It allows you to impact multiple domains at the same time, and it's more effective. And this is something that we have always advocated for. Not just when I was wearing the uniform, but I advocate for this now that I'm retired as well.
If I ask you how you describe the role of F-16 now, do you think it has become a game changer in this war?
I think it's on the way to becoming a game changer. It definitely has an impact, but that impact will increase over time as your pilots become more experienced, as they start doing more joint operations. That is where the F-16 excels. It is extremely agile and it can magnify its capability, especially in joint operations. So I see it growing exponentially to a level where it is a game changer.
Do you think the number of F-16 that Ukraine has somehow influences the impact that these jets can have on the front line?
That's dependent upon how Ukraine Air Force and the Ukraine Armed Forces decide to use them. And yes, I think it will make a big difference. And I think that the equipment is in very talented hands. The maintainers, the logisticians who support the F-16 flying operations are just as talented as the pilots, but it's a matter of experience and time to become Jedi masters of this weapons system. I would like to highlight that a lot of people thought that the F-16 was too advanced for Ukraine to operate, and there were political arguments to this extent. The same arguments were made for the Patriot. The same arguments were made for HIMARS and the ATACMS. But what Ukraine has constantly proven time over time is that they rise to the challenge, and they're exceedingly capable at operating advanced weapon systems. And this is key, because Ukraine, in their philosophy, is targeting what we call effects-based targeting. Ukraine targets capabilities in Russia or on the front lines that will prevent Russia from killing Ukrainian civilians. And this philosophy is different than sending weapons into apartment buildings or public places or churches. They are specifically aimed at having an effect to reduce the enemy's capability. Both morally it's superior, and over time it is superior, because Russia is fighting a war of attrition. Ukraine is fighting a war of impact. And I think over time, platforms like the F-16 and technology, weapon systems, advanced weapon systems like the F-16 will make a difference.
Do you think many Americans have this understanding of war like you say?
Well, I think many people in the military do. I don't think the message is as pervasive across our country as it needs to be. I think that we have gone from a narrative of survival of Ukraine to now people start to see that Ukraine is going to win this war. And that message needs to be communicated more. We need to start getting comfortable with the fact that not only is Ukraine going to survive, but they're going to win this war.
There is a feeling inside Ukraine that it is now being somehow betrayed by its biggest partner, by the United States, by many messages that Ukraine hears from the White House. You're the person who's been having such great connections with Ukraine and with its military over the past 20 years. How do you feel about this? Do you feel also somehow betrayed?
I don't feel betrayed. I've had the privilege of being able to work here for 23 years, and that's over multiple administrations in our country, both Republican and Democrat. And I still see tremendous support for Ukraine. The politics, those of us in uniform and who have grown up in the military, I don't get involved in the politics. I get involved in the tactical, operational, and strategic way that we could help Ukraine.
Politics is not only about the political statements, but it's also about political decisions, like to provide military aid or not. And if the United States is about to stop providing military aid, what do you think Ukraine can rely on to win this war?
Well, I think there are many countries in the world that support Ukraine, not just the United States. And I think that a tremendous amount of support comes from your regional allies in Europe. And I think Europe clearly understands that it is in their advantage that Ukraine win this war, because otherwise they'll be fighting next.
Do you think that the European countries still have some F-16 that they can share with Ukraine, or they've given everything they had?
I don't know the numbers, but I do know that multiple countries in Europe fly the F-16, which is another reason why I think the decision makers felt like the F-16 was good for Ukraine, because multiple regional partners have this aircraft. And even though these countries have donated their F-16s because they're moving on to F-35s, there's still a lot of resident wisdom inside these countries that could help benefit Ukraine as they're learning to fly the F-16.
What do you expect on the front line, on the battlefield this year, or maybe next year?
I expect Ukraine will continue to use the advanced weapon systems to their advantage. It's, first of all, I'm very optimistic, but let me be clear in that it is very difficult for Ukraine to fight this war on behalf of the free world. And I do not for a second dismiss the sacrifice that not only your armed forces are making, but the civilian population as well. It's extremely difficult. But my outlook on it and the trends that I see is that Ukraine will continue to hit targets that will have an effect on the war. And because of this strategy, Ukraine will have the advantage and will outlast Russia. They will deplete their capabilities, continue to deplete Russia's military capability.
What did you think about our drone operation on Russian airfields?
It was fantastic news to wake up to. It shows again the creativity, the ingenuity of Ukrainian armed forces and other agencies that do operations such as this. But it clearly demonstrates that they were targeting the archers, not the arrows, for once. And these type of operations are not against the public. They are, as a matter of fact, they were strictly against military hardware. This is the Western way of fighting. I think this operation specifically demonstrates to the West how disciplined Ukraine is in fighting morally and fighting to deplete the capability of the enemy, not necessarily the people.
Have you experienced the latest Russian airstrike on Kyiv, or have you just arrived?
No, I was here. I mean, it's not just the horrible attack the other night, but it's been weeks on end of this just inhumane, not military targeting. And this is like an attrition of will that Russia is trying to impose on Ukraine. It's a political type of attack to get the public opinion to drive the nation towards negotiation or something, but they underestimate the Ukrainian people.
So you think that the will is still there?
Yes, it's very hard. I imagine the country is exhausted of this war, but Ukrainians have tasted freedom, and you can see it in someone's eyes when you talk to them about the war. They are not going to subjugate themselves. And this is something that, as an American, resonates with me. You know, our country is founded on our fight of independence. And so I would think it would be very easy for an American to relate and see the same fight in Ukraine's fight for their independence. This fight's happening now. Ours took place for our ancestors, but we educate our families and our children to be proud that we fought against an oppressor and we won our independence. And I think this directly relates to how Americans should feel about Ukraine.
You know, sometimes when people feel tired, exhausted, and scared here in Ukraine, they think that to win this war, we need some miracle. So what do you think that miracle could be?
I think that miracle is the fact that you're born with the Ukrainian tenacity, ingenuity, creativity. It separates you from who you are fighting against. And it's a superpower in some ways, not to be cliche, but having seen it firsthand and being able to speak with the warriors and the heroes that are fighting this war. It's something that I did not see when I was flying combat missions for my nation many, many years ago. in a different region of the world. But the passion and the determination is what, that's the miracle, is you were born with this superpower.
Robert, thank you very much for this conversation, and thank you very much for all the help and participation and commitment that you provided to Ukrainian colleagues from 2018 to this moment that we are in this war and in this history. So thank you very much, and hope to see you soon in Ukraine.
Вещано и разом до перемоги. Together we will go to victory.
Thank you very much. Дякую дуже.